Dia Heave, August, Cade Mila Fulcher, Roll O Father John Murphy, Division 9 Plymouth, August, the town of Scituate. God be to you, and 100,000 welcomes to you from the Father John Murphy, Division 9 Plymouth, and the town of Scituate. And I want to thank you all for coming out in this challenging Irish weather, but God bless you for that. Before we start with the singing of the Irish National Anthem by Maureen Haiti, just something that needs recognition, and that is, on St. Patrick's Day this past year, there was a beautiful program presented called Shades of Green, and it was shown all around the world. And in that program, there were featured locations from throughout the entire United States, like Chicago, Savannah, San Francisco, the Alamo. And in New England, the two locations were Portland, Maine, and Scituate, Massachusetts. And that is due to the thoughtfulness and the kindness of Consul General Lisa Moore. And it was narrated by Catherine Shannon and filmed by videographer Seth Pfeiffer. So if all three of those people could get recognition, that'd be great. It really was an extraordinary thing to have our town put on the world map. So for that, we're grateful. And now, Maureen Haiti.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It just reminds me, I think I'm in Lettermore. Oran na Bhíon, or the Soldier Song, as it was originally written by Padda Kearney, is a very integral part of the Easter Rising, because it was adopted by the rebels and the freedom fighters as their song. And it's notable that this was written between 1909 and 1910. And the place where Padda Kearney was writing this was in the Swiss Cafe, which is at the corner of O'Connell Street and North Earl Street in Dublin. And needless to say, there must have been a lot of chatter going on about their impending plans. So anyway, and the other thing I love about the song is the fact that the tune was composed on a melodeon, and the melodeon was a very common instrument in most Irish homes at the time, because history told us that any other elegant instruments we had were destroyed at one time or another. But again, the history of the song is important because Sean Rogers, he was probably more educated and in musical terms, and he actually did the musical notations. And then later on, Liam O'Ryan, who was also part of the Rising and who was the chief translator for the Oireachtas, which is the combined houses of Dáil Éireann, translated to the Irish language. And as everything Irish is, there's always a little bit of commotion here and there, and rifts and tiffs, and little back and forth. So this it wasn't accepted from, you can imagine, for the 1924 Paris Olympics, they decided to do Let Éireann Remember, which was not really liked by most of the Irish people. But at the time, O'Ryan translated it while he was interned in Frognoth, which was in Wales. And fair play, as they say, God bless the Gaelic Athletic Association. They decided to adopt this as their anthem in Irish for all their matches in Croke Park. And people forgot about all the tiffs and went on, as they say, and today it is the national anthem. And when Lisa goes places and when she appears in this is the anthem that is played for her and any other ambassador or noteworthy Irish as far as the president. So as well as that, today I am, just because it's raining and we'd like to get a good, nice Irish complexion for all of you, I'd like to just sing a verse that's really, really important, I think, in this song, which describes Ireland so beautiful. Sin a fianna foil a tofial egeden buin dor slua artir the rani coin ve void vaser shantir arshinchir fasta Niach for vintiral no vintrol a nach der Rhein ze varne will le gan wel gaan bos no sheer firan ich grech vil lavach nabel der Shalif Kani Aran Vian Koish Bonta Hare Ed Ardashle Babuaka Harshin Shed Ronche Eglavach God train Fenshin Thou was sung eg sjolele Viducha triav Sargin Arnoi Smadikana Oran Navian. And it says in valleys green or towering crag, our fathers fought before us and conquered neath the same old flag that's proudly floating o'er us. We're children of a fighting race that never yet has known disgrace, and as we march the foe to face, we'll chant our soldier song. Gurmila Mahagay. And now to the great country that gave us refuge and all aid. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Hang on. We've all got the mask thing. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. My name is Karen Canfield. I'm current chair of the Select Board in Scituate, and on behalf of the entire board, I want to thank you for standing in the rain again for this important day. I want to thank all of the distinguished guests who are here, and you'll hear from in a minute, so I won't take a lot of time, but I just wanted to say a couple of quick things. This memorial is you know, for IBMs like me, which is Irish by marriage, very important way for our community to understand the history that impacted Ireland and and consequently the United States, and also the heritage that a lot of our neighbors and friends share. So it's been
a real education for me. And the nice thing about it is it brings an opportunity to draw people into our community to learn the lessons themselves. So a big thank you to everyone. I'll get to the thank yous in a minute. But I also wanted to just let everybody be aware that this memorial will be part of a very important new venture called the Irish Heritage Trail. If you haven't heard about it, you will very soon. That will draw people down the South Shore to many sites and communities like ours that honor and support the Irish heritage story. And so much of that work is started right here in Scituate, and it's going to be supported by the brand new Scituate Visitor Center. And all of this will enrich our community both through bringing people into the education, understanding where our place is in American and Irish history, but also in a way to provide economic development that we're all going to really benefit after coming out of this incredibly challenging year. So I wanted to make sure everyone knew about that, but I would be remiss in not thanking the folks that made this event happen, which of course most of it goes to our, where are you? Right behind me. Mr. John Sullivan, who worked tirelessly not only to get the memorial, but to put together today. Thank you, John. And of course, our town administrator, who's hiding in the rain somewhere back here, Jim Bedreau and Michelle Segazy, who took care of logistics to get the event together. And I cannot say this man's name enough. In the past year, the man behind the camera, Mr. Seth Pfeiffer, who is our director of community television, has made sure that no matter where we are quarantining, where we are in the community, people can be engaged and know what's going on. So thank you, Seth. The other two big thanks I have to do before I turn over the microphone is to our own Brenda O'Connor, who's hiding in her red jacket in front, who was instrumental in the Irish Heritage Trail and the Visitor Center. And I'm sure I'm forgetting folks, but I won't belabor it because I know we've got a great list of folks that are going to be up to speak. And next is John.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out on this beautiful sunny day. Appreciate it. I got to use my Patriots tent for the first time in over 12 months. There's been no home games. Also want to thank Siobhan Hunter, where Siobhan's around here someplace, for all the work she'd done on the committee. There's Siobhan, okay, along with Brenda. Mike Schilling from the Hibernians. Put your hand up, Mike. Mike did the program for us today, does a great job. And of course, John Sullivan and all the distinguished guests here. A few years ago, I picked up this book called The Immortal Irishman. Some of you may have read it. It's about Thomas Francis Meagher. I won't share the book with you, but if you may know Thomas, Mr. Meagher was the gentleman who introduced the tricolors, which is now the national flag of Ireland. When I picked up this book a couple years ago, I had a very hard time getting through the very first few paragraphs of the very first chapter of the book. And to this day, I still pick this book up periodically, and I read those first few paragraphs. And sometimes after I read them, I'm angry. Other times I'm sad. But most often I'm proud. I'm proud of my Irish heritage, my Irish ancestry, and proud of the resiliency of the Irish people, that they fought like heck to finally win their independence, their God-given right. And I'd like to share those first paragraphs with you, and just bear with me, okay? And this first paragraph is appropriately entitled, Under the Boot Heel. For the better part of 7 centuries, to be Irish in Ireland was to live in a land not your own. You called the lake next to your family home by one name, and the occupiers gave it another. You knew a town had been built by the hands of your ancestors, the quarry of origin for the stones pressed in those streets, and you were forbidden from inhabiting it. You could not enter a court of law as anything but a criminal or a snitch. You could not worship your God, and a church open to the public without risking prison or public flogging. You could not attend school at any level, even at home. And if your parents sent you out of the country to be educated, you could not return. You could not marry, conduct trade, or go into business with a Christian Protestant. You could not have a foster child. If orphaned, you were forced into a home full of people who rejected your faith. You could not play your favorite sports. Hurling was specifically prohibited. You could not own land in more than 80% of your own country. The bogs, the barrens, and the highlands were your haunts. You could not own a horse worth more than 5 pounds sterling. If you married an Englishman, you would lose everything upon his death. You could not speak your language outside your home. You would not think in Irish, so the logic went, if you were not allowed to speak in Irish. Your ancient verses were forbidden from being uttered in select company. Your songs could not be sung, your music not played, your Celtic crosses not displayed. You could be thrown into prison for expressions of folklore or native art. One law made it a felony for a piper, a storyteller, a babbler, or a rhymer to be in the company of an Englishman. Another sick statute banished bards and minstrels. You could not vote. You could not hold office. You were nothing. The law does not suppose any such person to exist as an Irish Roman Catholic, said John Bowes, an 18th century Lord Chancellor of the island. Nor could any such person draw a breath without the Crown's permission. The medleys of this nation and its favorite instrument were a particular target of eager hatred. At one point, your fingernails could be removed if you were caught playing the harp. The Irish married to the sounds that came from that instrument, and they grieved in some of those same keys. But the indigenous music came to be seen as subversive, too nationalistic, too connected to the old stories. In 1603, it was proclaimed that all manner of barbs and harpers were to be exterminated by martial law. The same year, a few months before her death, it was said in Ireland that Queen Elizabeth had ordered her troops to hang the harpers wherever found and destroy their instruments. The Virgin Queen allowed Shakespeare and Marlowe to reach great heights during her long reign, but Elizabeth had not a thimble of tolerance for the people she considered primitive. To encourage the elimination of one musical aspect of that culture, the government paid a bounty to anyone who turned in outlaws of the harp. The musicians were easy to round up. Many of them were blind. Music, their only refuge of source and income. What had the Irish done to deserve these cruelties? They had refused to become English. Thank you. There's more.
Bear with me a moment. A córte a chuoine úsla tá an áthas orm a bheith an seo aniu. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, I'm really happy to be here with you today to mark this very special occasion, even if it is a wet day. I wouldn't say it's an Irish day. It's a bit too warm to be an Irish day, to be perfectly honest with you. But no, just to say fair play to everybody who put all of the work into making this day happen, this commemoration happen this year and every year, and who put in so much work to the wonderful monument that we see to my right. But also, I just want to say thank you very much to everybody for coming out and standing in the rain on this day to be part of it. This is the first time I have been in Scituate since I think it was it October September when we unveiled the monument informally. I said on that occasion I was going to up my mask game because I was really impressed by some of the people wearing face masks and I see some of them here, Irish flags and shamrocks and so forth. Well, I'm very happy that thanks to Chairwoman Canfield I have a much better mask this time. I have the Scituate mask. So, but look, I just want to say thank you very much for inviting me here. This is the first time I have been part of this commemoration that takes place every year. I believe it started a number of years ago when we were marking the 100th anniversary of the 1916 Rising. And as I said when I was speaking back in September, the Rising itself, of course, was, from a purely military point of view, it was a failure, but from the point of view of I guess the political effects that it had in transforming Irish attitudes and Irish society, it was a really important event because it was foundational to the history, it was foundational to the forming of the Irish state and to the achievement of Irish self-determination. And if you read the text of the proclamation on this wonderful monument, you see that it pays specific tribute to the support of friends and allies in America. And today, over 100 years on, as we remember those events, that support and that friendship is, for an Irish person who is here in Massachusetts, it's as relevant and it's as important as ever. And John Sullivan mentioned at the outset the fact that the town of Scituate was participated in our Shades of Green event. That's very much part of that story. Shades of Green, what it was as we looked to celebrate St. Patrick's Day in March of this year, it became pretty obvious that we weren't going to be able to celebrate St. Patrick's Day in a normal way. So it was mostly through a variety of virtual events, both in Boston, around the country. But our ambassador, the Irish ambassador to the US, Dan Mulhall, he wanted to do an event encompassing as much as possible of the Irish community around America and celebrating Irish culture and Irish heritage here and in all its diversity and all its ways. And what he did was he asked all of each of the 7 consulates around the US to please nominate, one or two places that could feature in this virtual show. And I mean, I have to say, coming from Boston, it was an embarrassment of riches to choose from, and it was actually quite a hard choice to make. But we did ask the town of Scituate to participate because of this wonderful monument, because the town has, in a country that has an extraordinarily high degree of Irish heritage, Scituate, of course, is a very, very special place in that. So it was, and it was just the sense of connection with Ireland that is so strong here and that continues to be celebrated. So that was why we asked Scituate to participate, and we were delighted that we did and that we were able to feature the wonderful waterfront here, the monument, to talk about the new Irish Heritage Trail that's being developed, which I think is really exciting. I've seen some of the sites on it, and I think that when a time comes when we can travel more freely between Ireland and the US, I think it's going to be a great resource for Irish people who want to learn more about their connections with this part of New England and the South Shore. And also, I was delighted that it featured our very own Dr. Catherine Shannon, who I think in her own way is a monument to Irish America. So just to say that for all of those reasons, I'm really happy that we were able to have Scituate participate in that program. And that monument, it is a monument to the events of over 100 years ago, but it is also a monument to the extraordinarily deep and enduring ties between Ireland and this part of the world, and it continues to be so important and so cherished at home. So thank you all for coming out here on this very rainy day. Thank you for organising this event and asking me to be a part of it, and looking forward to many more times that we can come to the town of Scituate and continue to build on our links and our heritage, and many more occasions to celebrate together. So, Gur Míle Mágat, thank you all very, very much.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Jack Leahy. Jack is the state president of the Ancient Order of Hibernians. We're very pleased to have him here today with us. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Honorable Irish Consulate, Leisha Moore, town leaders, Monument Committee, distinguished guests, brother and sister Hibernians, friends all. It's my honor to bring the greetings of the Ancient Order of Hibernians and friends and of the State Board and its more than 1,500 collective members throughout Massachusetts here to you today. We congratulate the Monument Committee, town leaders, and the Plymouth Division of the AOH for its part in erecting this memorial, which marked a significant change in Irish history. I'll leave the details of the insurrection to our guest speaker and history teacher, Jeremy Hales, but would prefer to touch on a passage in the proclamation itself, which reads, "And supported by her exiled people in America." These exiled people were those that left their motherland for a new and conceivably better life in America. These exiled people were our grandparents, great-grandparents who sailed across the pond for better living conditions. Some were those who came to the United States and helped to form the Ancient Order of Hibernians in America in 1836. One section of the preamble of the AOH Constitution reads, "To aid and advance by all legitimate means and aspirations and endeavors of the Irish people for complete and absolute independence, promoting peace and unity for all Ireland." The AOH was there in 1919 when Eamon de Valera sought financial help with the selling of Republican bonds. Most recently, Irish America was there when President Clinton sent Senator George Mitchell of Maine to help broker the Good Friday Agreement, whose goals parallel the intentions of the rebellion and proclamation. I believe the Ancient Order of Hibernians to be the voice of Irish America, and not until the Good Friday Agreement is fully complied with will the full meaning of the proclamation be brought to full circle. One government, one flag, and a nation once again. Then, and only then, will the lives of those patriots and martyrs of the 1916 Irish Rebellion, who we honor here today, not have been sacrificed in vain. God bless America, God bless Ireland, God bless you all, and thank you.
Good morning. I am State Representative Joan Mosquino and representing the North Scituate. It is absolutely my pleasure to be here with you today. I'm going to say it's a beautiful day, fine weather for ducks. And you are all so wonderful to come out. First, I just wanted to add my welcome to Selectwoman Canfield, to Chair Canfield. You grace us with your presence, and it's wonderful to have the warm, strong connections, not just nation to nation, or state to state, but to our local community of Scituate, and we are just thrilled, absolutely thrilled every time you and your predecessors and all of your successors come and spend time with us in our community, because that's what this really is community. People who are proud of their heritage, who celebrate their heritage, who gather and not just to remember, but also to create new cultural meanings like the monument, like the Scituate, like the Irish Trail, and we do it intergenerationally. So it's nice to see grandchildren here as well as children, as well as the parents. So I just wanted to say welcome to all of you. I'm delighted to be here, to thank all of the people who organized. Where's the chair? Thank you so much. I know how much work this takes, and especially to get 60, 70 people out on such a day. But just let me thank you again, and to wish you all warm hearts and good spirits on this day. Senator?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Patrick O'Connor. I'm the state senator for Scituate. My district that I represent has Weymouth all the way down to Duxbury, and has some of the most Irish zip codes in the entire United States of America. And it's a great honor to be able to represent this region and have this much Irish heritage here, because of the significance that the Irish government as well as the Irish people have played in the United States of America. I had the privilege of living over in England for 3 years during undergrad, and I've been able to talk to so many people and experience a little bit of the culture of the people of Ireland and that region in general in Europe. And when you look at the proclamation that was issued in 1916, over 100 years ago, and you look at the uphill battle that they had at that point in time by issuing that proclamation, and then you see the uphill battle of people like Michael Collins and the uphill battle of people in Northern Ireland like Bobby Sands, you continue to see that they went against what would be logic. They went against what they knew was going to be a David versus Goliath type battle, but they did it because they knew that what they were fighting for was right, to have their point of view heard, to be able to experience independence and freedom. And so as we stand here today, over 100 years since that proclamation was written, and that those individuals took the steps that they took, I think that if they were to be able to be here today to see people standing out in the rain, they'd be very proud of the measures that they took and the country they built and the relationships that they bridged throughout this entire time. So I just wanted to thank everyone for being here today. I know it's not a great weather day at all, and it's been discussed, but it's truly an honor to be able to represent Scituate and to know that community events like this take place and that individuals such as those men who were signed on that beautiful, beautiful monument are recognized and appreciated still today over a century later. Thank you. And now Siobhan Hunter.
Thank you, Patrick, Senator. And thank you all for coming out in the rain today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the chair of the West Cork Scituate Sister City Committee. The town of Scituate first twinned with West Cork back in 2016, and then the committee was formed in 2017. One of our main missions is to acknowledge and preserve the contributions of Irish immigrants and their descendants here in Scituate in the U.S. Another ongoing mission is to create and maintain a relationship with the West Cork community that includes the exchange of ideas and people, as well as enriching and deepening our connection. So far, with 3 delegations under our belts, we have been extremely successful in establishing a solid connection with West Cork that has been the impetus for ongoing projects here, such as the Visitor Center, outdoor dining, and some future student and organizational exchanges, the upcoming, which you heard about, the South Shore Irish Heritage Trail, and perhaps some collaboration with some flood management systems. My appreciation for the committee runs deep. My father grew up in a Catholic neighborhood on the Glen Road in Belfast. In the 1960s, a few years after his father had passed, he, his mother, and his sister drove down to Dublin to obtain their Irish passports. They then followed, like most immigrants, siblings and cousins that already made their way to the U.S. in order to find work and to escape the increasing violence in Belfast. At this time, it was just considered the beginning of the Troubles. Many other members of his family stayed, but not spared the violence. My uncle, for example, Frank Corr, at just 52 years of age, a father of 5, a successful self-employed man, an active member in the GAA, specifically hurling, was brutally murdered in 1972. Since my 5-year-old is here, I'll spare him and everyone else the horrific details. This tragedy forced my aunt to relocate her family to Shannon, while others stayed, breaking up her family support when it was needed most. My mother hailed from Timoleague and went to school in Clonakilty, both in West Cork. Once out of school, like my father, she followed her cousin into the U.S. in search of work and a better life that she couldn't find back home. She was fortunate, or perhaps too stubborn, not to have to change her name Eileen, like her cousin she had followed, that was told her name Bridget was too Irish. My parents met when their immigration attorney that they shared thought they would be a great match. It didn't take long after that when they met in Boston, that they were married and had 3 children, I being the favorite, of course, because my brother and sister couldn't make it, so there you have it. Growing up, they instilled in us not only the need for a good sense of humor, but also a strong work ethic, resourcefulness, a sense of appreciation, a desire to learn about other cultures, a love of music and laughter, pride for the country they felt necessary to leave, and the knowledge of what Ireland has lost throughout the generations. Loss of language, loss of land, loss of names, loss of culture, loss of human rights, loss of human lives, just to name a few. They kept us involved in the community by going to Irish social clubs weekly, and also housing and helping other Irish immigrants as they transitioned. Sorry, turning the page. as they transitioned to this country. I was brought up knowing that being Irish wasn't about drinking and wearing green on St. Patrick's Day. I was brought up knowing that there was no shame in being an immigrant. You just had to work harder. I was brought up a fighter. I was brought up knowing that it was important that people appreciate where they came from, good or bad, to acknowledge it, learn from it, and to understand where you need to go from there. I was brought up knowing the struggles of the Irish and the strong bond between the U.S. Therefore, I believe this annual commemoration is so important, and why our committee is as well. We don't need to live in the past, but we need to acknowledge and we need to appreciate it. Every culture has its story and its struggles. Northern Ireland has experienced violence once again by young loyalist group, most born after the Troubles. They say they feel forgotten in the Brexit process and by the UK in general. They have said they fear they will start losing their culture and others are being favored. A feeling that has been not only felt in the Irish culture, but almost all cultures around the world for hundreds, if not thousands of years. In the year 2021, equality and appreciation of all cultures is something that the world is still striving for. History does not have to be repeated if we acknowledge it, respect it, and take it from the lessons that we need to. Thank you.
I know we had State Representative Patrick Kearney on the program. He was not able to make it, but he sends his best wishes. He has been a supporter ever since he first participated in this commemoration. Before I read the proclamation, I also want to acknowledge my brother Hibernians that have been supportive of this commemoration each and every year, who travel up from Plymouth and all around the South Shore. On the morning of April 24th, 1916, the members of the people who were involved in the rising gathered at Liberty Hall. And Joseph Mary Plunkett, who had just gotten out of a hospital, rode by car. And Thomas Clark rode by car because his 15 years in a British prison had left him weakened, but still resolved. And on that morning, they went to the GPO, and the proclamation was read for the first time. And one of the phrases jumped out at me, and I'm going to read it. I'm going to read the proclamation, but I'm going to read this so that there's an understanding of where this came from. And this is the phrase that struck me. We declare the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies to be sovereign and indefeasible. The long usurpation of that right by a foreign people and government has not extinguished the right, nor can it ever be extinguished except by the destruction of the Irish people. And that destruction of the Irish people is something that was tried for centuries. You can go back to before the Elizabethan Wars, to Cromwell, who massacred people, men, women, and children in Wexford, massacred men, women, and children in Drogheda. And he would routinely use Catholic churches to stable his horses, after which he destroyed many throughout the entire country of Ireland. Going from there to the penal laws that were in place for over a century that marginalized the Irish people. The Irish children were not permitted an education in a school until 1845, and even then, it was in the English language, not the Irish language. From there, you had the Great Famine, where the people and the culture were decimated. Millions either fled or died of starvation and disease. To the land wars. After the land wars, you had the GAA revival, but there was a continuity of resistance to rule by the foreigners, culminating ultimately in 1916. Public na hÉireann, the provisional government of the Irish Republic to the people of Ireland. Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and of the dead generations from which she receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland, through us, summons her children to her flag and strikes for her freedom. Having organized and trained her manhood through her secret revolutionary organization, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and through her open military organizations, the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizens Army, having patiently perfected her discipline, having resolutely waited for the right moment to reveal itself, she now seizes that moment and, supported by her exiled children in America and her gallant allies in Europe, but relying in the first on her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. We declare the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies, to be sovereign and indefeasible. The long usurpation of that right by a foreign people and government has not extinguished the right, nor can it ever be extinguished except by the destruction of the Irish people. In every generation, the Irish people have asserted their right to national freedom and sovereignty. 6 times during the past 300 years, they have asserted it in arms. Standing on that fundamental right and again asserting it in arms in the face of the world, we hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign, independent state, and we pledge our lives and the lives of our comrades in arms to the cause of its freedom, of its welfare, and of its exaltation among the nations. The Irish Republic is entitled to and hereby claims the allegiance of every Irish man and Irish woman. The Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights, and equal opportunities for all its citizens, and declares its resolve to pursue the happiness and the prosperity of the whole nation and all its parts, cherishing all the children of the nation equally and oblivious of the differences carefully fostered by an alien government which have divided a minority from the majority in the past. Until our arms have brought the opportune moment for the establishment of a permanent national government, representative of the whole people of Ireland and elected by the suffrages of all her men and women, the provisional government, hereby constituted, will administer the civil and military affairs of the Republic in trust for the people. We place the cause of the Irish Republic under the protection of the Most High God, whose blessing we invoke upon our arms, and we pray that no one who serves that cause will dishonor it by cowardice, inhumanity, or rapine. In this supreme hour, the Irish nation must, by its valor and discipline, and by the readiness of its children to sacrifice themselves for the common good, prove itself worthy of the august destiny to which it is called. Signed, on behalf of the Provisional Government, Thomas J. Clark, Sean McDermott, P.H. Pierce, James Connolly, Thomas McDonough, Eamon Kent, Joseph Plunkett. Thank you. Now I'm honored to present the keynote speaker, Jeremy Hales. And Jeremy is a graduate of Ithaca College, where he received his bachelor's degree and a master's degree from the University of Massachusetts. Jeremy is a husband and a father of 3, and he's taught for the Plymouth school system for the past 21 years. And in reflecting upon the teaching of Irish history, there's a great quote by the Apache people. They say, "We are not just who we are, but also who we were." And there's great wisdom to remember that when learning about any group of people. We're not just who we are, but who we were. And there's such richness to the Irish culture and Irish history that not just Irish people can learn, but all people can learn of how one group persevered and stood steadfast and stood focused on freedom, on retaining its voice, And that is something that certainly the Plymouth school system recognized. I also want to recognize Kathy Babini, who's here today, who was instrumental in Irish history being taught in the Plymouth school systems. And Kathy. And perhaps someday in this most Irish region, in this most Irish state in America, the wisdom of learning from the lessons of the Irish can be taught in the public schools. But Jeremy Hales and his peer, Michael McGinnis in Plymouth South, have taught to juniors and seniors for the past 6 years. And so in recognition of that and in honor of what he does, we're featuring him as our keynote speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I'm by no means an expert on Irish history, and I feel like everybody has said, I don't know if there's any much more I can add to this today. I read a couple books, took a class at UMass Boston, and I've been lucky to go to Ireland a few times, but even that, we don't leave Kerry. We always want to leave Kerry, and we go to Dingle, and so even that I'm limited in what I can offer. But it is an honor to really be here. And besides Kathy Babini, Rob Powers is back there too, another social studies curriculum director at Plymouth, and I'm very lucky to be a teacher in Plymouth. Kathy Babini and Rob Powers, they let us teach, and they let us just do what we want to do. And I'm really lucky to teach in Plymouth, Massachusetts. About 7 years ago, I remember joking with Kathy about, we were trying to add more electives to the curriculum at Plymouth. We had a lot of U.S. history electives, and we kind of made the joke to, Kathy and I joking about, God, if there's a place to teach Irish history, well, I mean, obviously Scituate would be the #1 place, but, from the entire South Shore of Massachusetts, why not? And it kind of went from a joke to just bouncing it off talking about it. And then Kathy Babini got it done. She got the curriculum approved. And sure enough, that summer, myself, Kathy, and Martin McGinnis Michael, well, Martin McGinnis is a whole nother story for, Michael McGinnis. And so we worked on a curriculum. It was kind of cool to start a course for the first time. I'd never done that in all my years teaching, and it was hard. We have 2 years of U.S. history in the state curriculum, and America's a couple hundred years old. How do you do a half-year course on thousands of years of history? And it was a hard struggle at first, because it was a lot of names and dates and names and dates and more names and more dates, and nothing bores kids. I mean, you've all taken history in school. Nothing is more boring than names and dates. And so, it's hard to try to make it come alive. And I'll be honest, the more I got to know about Irish history, the more I realized I didn't know. I mean, like anything in life, you learn more, and then you realize there's more to learn. And I think that was hard too. But I talked with Michael McGinnis of South. We've tried to do things to just, I guess, limit how many names and dates, and try to capture the overall story of Ireland. And obviously, you got to know key things. I mean, like the penal laws, and the genocide of Oliver Cromwell. We have to talk about that. And Wolfe Tone, they got to know Wolfe Tone and Daniel O'Connell, and then the Great Hunger, and just because of the connection, with America now. I mean, the fact that Eamon de Valera is born in New York, such a great connection between the countries, and then obviously the situation in the North today. But other than that, let's make the course more just big picture. And if you can go to an Irish pub when you're older, obviously, and hold your own with someone from Ireland, that would be pretty cool. If you can just, not BS with them, but be able to just talk about Ireland. And so that's kind of the goal. I think that once we made it more big picture, it was kind of a more fun class. And so we'll go out and play hurling. I know you mentioned it in the in the book. I mean, to tell, I always think if communists had like Red Dawn ever happened and the communists took over America, and then they told us we couldn't play baseball and football, like there's no way we wouldn't. We'd all be playing wiffle ball in the backyard, and Thanksgiving we'd be playing football. And I think that's what the Irish did. They're not going to not play hurling, and to think that was attempted to be stopped. So I love going out, and we'll try to do hurling. I mean, the first time I did it, we had 3 hurling sticks, and it didn't really work out. We hit the wrong direction into the senior center. I didn't think kids could hit a ball that far. When we shattered a table on the patio of the, a kid hit one from 70 yards away on our football field. So I'll go in the other direction. And the woodshop teacher, Mr. Savage, has now built us. We have 12 hurleys, or hurling sticks. So that's been kind of fun, and hopefully one day we'll get up to 25 and we can play a full game. But anyway, so to connect to the Irish, to the Easter Rising, I think, and just to wrap it up, because I know it's cold and rainy, like the one thing we have to not skip and really do detailed, I feel like, is Easter Rising. And so there's a lot to go over, and all the names that you had mentioned that signed this, and then the additional names like Roger Casement and Constance Markievicz, just what she was able to do. I used to show the 2-hour documentary that the RTE television came up with 4 years ago with Liam Neeson. I don't know if anyone's not seen it. It's so good. But to show that to high school kids, the first time I realized I can't show 2-hour documentary, maybe, as much as I loved it. So I'll show bits and pieces of it. But about 5 years ago, I was downtown Plymouth, and the post office in the center of Plymouth, it's a stretch, but it does look a little bit like the GPO in Dublin. It has like the nice pillar column things. And so I thought, why don't we reenact it? And we'll march down from Plymouth North to the center of town. We'll take over the building. We won't take the American flag down. We'll put an Irish flag in there. And then we'll just post that proclamation. The librarian made huge copies for me, and we're going to post it all over the building. And then we'll go out on the front steps and read it, like John just did. And I thought this would be pretty cool. So the principal at the time, said we had to call the Plymouth Police Department, so they didn't think there's a bunch of teenage kids with Irish flags and hurling sticks just marching downtown Plymouth. So I did, and we got the permission slips. I talked to the woman at the post office. She was great. She was very excited for this. So it was pretty cool. We went in, planted the flag, pasted the proclamation all over the building, and read it. Now the owner of the building, I didn't realize the post office didn't own the building, so he was, and we were very late coming back. Like I'm 25 minutes late for the next period. So, but it was, for that moment, I said, how awkward it must have felt. We're on the front steps. People are driving by downtown Plymouth wondering what the heck we are doing. And, and to get them to buy in, we would stop at Dunkin' Donuts on the way back to represent our joy at that moment, because they weren't going to win. And we talk about the resiliency of the Irish, and I guess to be more serious, I just think what these men and women did, like it's inspiring to like it says in the proclamation, 6 times in 300 years we have tried to get our freedom and our independence. Now this will be a 7th attempt in 300 years, and of all the attempts, I mean, God, probably Wolfe Tone had a better chance in 1798 than these men and women did. I mean, the guns from Germany got intercepted. The British had to have known what was up, what was about to happen. And then once Owen McNeill canceled the rising, so most of the people didn't even show up. And to think that 2,000 men and women, they still did it. They still proceeded to fight for a dream that people have been fighting for so long. it is just inspiring. And, you know, yeah, they failed and like the ones before them, but, you know, this failure, I think, finally struck a nerve. And I get, so there's, at the end of the unit, we read the letters that some of them wrote from prison, and you know, I'm a cheeseball a little bit. We'll put on the Foggy Dew, the version with the Chieftains and Sinead O'Connor. And I try to tell the kids, whoever can read the letter the most dramatic, I'll give like a homework pass to just, you know. But anyway, so the last thing, and then I'm all set. This letter from Michael Mallon, so just yet another name that's not even on the proclamation, but this one gets me every time to think, you know, again, being the father of 3 children, like I don't think I could leave my kids. I mean, and they're old. Maybe now they're teenagers, so I could do it. But I mean, to think a lot of these guys had young children, and I think, I don't know. A great priest who christened my own children, and I should mention his name, Father Jim Lane. My first job was actually at St. Augustine's School in South Boston, and I remember in 1996, my first year teaching. You know, these are Southie kids who were so proud of their Irish heritage, and yet knew so little, you know, besides leprechauns and shamrocks and green and you know, and anyway, I just think how excited he would be that we have a course like this in America, you know, at a public school down in Plymouth, and anyway, this letter real quick, and then I'm all set. Sorry to my wife. So this is right before he's about to be executed. And so, I mean, the British did execute 15, you know, men and who just, again, had a dream. They weren't, I mean, these are poets, teachers, you know, idealists, you know, anyway. My wife, pulse of my heart, this is the end of all things earthly. The sentence of death has been passed, and at 3:45 tomorrow, the sentence will be carried out by shooting. And so must Irishmen pay for trying to make Ireland a free nation. God's will be done. I do not believe our blood has been shed in vain. If only you and the little ones were coming too, if we could all reach heaven together. My heartstrings are torn to pieces when I think of you and the children. I'm sorry, I can't even read. Of our manly James, Seamus, happy-go-lucky Sean, shy Warmuna, daddy's girl, and our little Joseph, my little man. It saddens me to leave you and the children to battle through this world without me. James and John must make yourselves good, strong men. Una, my little one, be a nun. And Joseph, my little man, be a priest if you can. By the way, he became a priest. He just passed away 2 years ago. Wife, dear wife, I cannot keep the tears back when I think of him, Joseph, that he will rest in my arms no more. I find no fault with the soldiers or the police. I forgive them from the bottom of my heart. Pray for all souls who fell in this fight, Irish and English. Ireland will come out greater and grander. She must not forget she is Catholic. She must keep her faith. Remember Ireland always. Michael. So I just think that, I don't know, if the kids can't get passionate for something like this, and then I think of today, here in 2021, in a little town here in America, that these guys didn't die in vain. And those 7 men who all were executed, who signed that proclamation, you know, like 5 years later, they will finally have their independence. So anyway, it's an honor to be here. I'll be honest, again, I didn't even know this existed until, John, you told me about a month ago that there's something like this in Scituate. So I'm continuing to learn so much about Ireland myself, and thank you again for allowing me to speak today. So, all right, thank you.
John's going to be wrapping up the program in a moment. If there's any gentlemen out here that are interested in learning more about the Hibernians, please see me after the program. Again, my name is John Travers, and if anyone out there did not get a program, also see me after the program, we finish up here. Thank you. John.
Thanks, John. Thank you, John. I'd like to give another round of applause to Jeremy Hales. That was beautiful and powerful. So, Goromilo Mahagat Agus Slanawaya, which is 100,000 thank yous and safe journey home. And mark your calendars, because on April 24th, 2022, not only will there be a commemoration, there'll be a formal dedication of this monument. And the forecast is a beauty. So thank you all for coming out. Take care.